gentlemen, the proposition before this House is that democracy is failing the planet. I now invite the first speaker for the affirmative, Professor Clive Hamilton, to outline this case.
Since the founding of modern science, matters of fact have been established through the common assent of those qualified to judge, using the rules of science laid down in the 17th century by the Royal Society. Over the last decade or so, politically driven climate deniers have adroitly used the instruments of democratic practice to erode the authority of professional expertise. They have attempted, with considerable success, to undermine the authority of climate science by skillful exploitation of a free media, appeal to freedom of information laws, the mobilisation of a group of vociferous citizens, and the promotion of their own to public office. In this way, democracy has defeated science. If democracy is a code word for humility, then we must live in a dictatorship, and it's this dictatorship of ignorance that's failing the planet. I've always rejected the idea as impractical and, well, anti-democratic, declaring over and over that the failure of democracy calls not for its suspension, but for its reinvigoration. But that hasn't stopped the Australians repeatedly claiming that I've called for the suspension of democracy. It's too good a lie not to repeat. It's because too many lies are being told that democracy is failing the planet. Yet we have no alternative but to use democracy to save democracy from failing us. I commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, democracy is not failing the planet. On the contrary, democracy is the only thing that can save the planet and humanity at the same time. Let me give you just one example. The Bengal famine was not caused by a lack of food. It was caused by a lack of democracy. There was no parliament in India to discuss the famine, no functioning parliament. There was nobody there to hold an inquiry. There were no MPs to petition. There were no ministers to force the colonial administrators to provide the starving poor with welfare or government jobs so they could afford to buy food. Millions died because they didn't have democracy to protect them. Why is it that only democracies can cope with famine? Well, that's because democratic governments are accountable to the people. The press is free, and public criticism can end political careers. Democratic governments, politicians that wish to be in power, respond to criticism. They have to respond to lobbying. They have to respond to the citizens. They have to if they want to keep their jobs. And that's the essence of democracy. India has had no famines since it became a democracy. In fact, no famine has ever occurred in a functioning democracy. One with regular elections, opposition parties, free speech, and a free press. Now, people from Tunisia to Tibet know this, from Liberia to Libya, from Somalia to Syria. They all know it, and that's why they're risking their lives for democracy. But here in Australia, we are beginning to take it for granted. Democracy is not failing the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the only thing that can save the planet.
I put it to the House that democracy is failing the planet, and I know the House knows it. Right now, on this planet, we have reached a point where failures, which have been amassing nationally and globally, have now reached compelling evidence that democracy, as it is most commonly practiced, has delivered both entrenched power to the elected and unelected elites, and also timidity, bias and paralysis in our representative decision-making processes, and all of this is resulting in mass crises that are undermining the planet and its species' future. Environmental crises, health crises, economic crises, crises in the failure of political will. We have been allowed to deny our moral responsibility for creating intergenerational equity. We borrow from the future to pay for the present. I now understand a different truth, that it is not democracy or the big democratic institutions that are successfully addressing poverty alleviation and economic and environmental justice, on which a fair and peaceful and sustainable planet is built. It is, in fact, individuals who actually see the failure of the planet's democratic systems as a call to action. We are stuck in fixed and destructively inflexible and unresponsive processes that stymie collective political will.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In a globalised world, the planet doesn't need less democratic governance, it needs better democratic governance for the big issues of our time, for managing the future of the planet. To argue otherwise would actually be on the wrong side of history. We need democracy for peace and security, for development, for protecting the environment and combating global warming, and for fostering the innovation needed to secure the planet's future. Democracy remains the best protection against some of the great threats to these vital goals: oppression, corruption, unprovoked aggression. Democracy is the ultimate safety valve in times of turmoil. When you can go to the ballot box to vent your frustration, you are less likely to have to kill or be killed for your beliefs or sullenly obey silly new laws. In the absence of democracy, we witness increased levels of corruption, erosion of human rights, and unbalanced distribution of resources. Corruption is one of the most powerful impediments to development, and democracy provides a stable environment to conduct business at all levels. You just have to take one look at the corruption index to see where most of the countries sit. The highest percentage are in poor, underdeveloped countries. True democracy enfranchises women and unlocks 50% of the world's productive potential, and basic rights of women are particularly absent in undemocratic countries. So, democracy may have made us lazy, given us a sense of entitlement, but it's our lack of engagement, not democracy, which is failing the planet. In authoritarian states, it is lack of democracy that is failing the planet. With all its imperfections, there is no other system which can muster the numbers and legitimacy needed for tackling the big global issues I've referred to this evening.
I think democracy can be defined as a system to organise ourselves for no other reason but for ourselves. When we say democracy is failing the planet, we say, of course it is. We're too busy bickering to bother about the planet. How can we expect to save the planet when we can't even save ourselves? I ask, how can we reinvent our democracy? If the problem is adversarial politics, then we need to consider other models that are less adversarial, models that rely less on elections, that promote common ground, that have better deliberation. I think, together with my colleagues, that it would be good to set up a review panel to review these models. We think that a panel is best constituted by a sortition process as well. It's amazing to realise that ordinary citizens, when they deliberate together, are quite extraordinary. Once we see our democracy is flawed, the challenge and the opportunity is to believe in ourselves. Thank you.
Our antagonists seem to be the victims of a mirage, Lured and lost in an inversion, they fail to see that it's the planet that's failing, falling short of democracy, not the other way round. What do they mean by democracy? What's real democracy? Well, it's for them a system that maintains a wide gap between the rich and the powerful and the powerless and the poor. It's a system that privatizes and undergirds all institutions that maintain this gap. Democracy for them is a system defined by lackluster leadership, by bickering, we just heard it, vitriol, snail-paced decision-making, staged campaigns, and pointless elections. It's a system that's quite unlike the old communism, because it means having not just one ineffective party, but at least two ineffective parties. A system that specialises in stirring up citizen disaffection caused by their own sense of powerlessness in the face of power that rules and ruins their lives and the biomes in which we live. But this is to confuse cause and symptom. It's large-scale planetary organisations. The Royal Bank of Scotland, Lehman Brothers, British Petroleum, and the Tokyo Electric Power Company, TEPCO, organisations that know no democratic accountability. They are the ones that are failing our planet and its people. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, can I thank the people behind the series of debates for this year in Sydney. Deb Richards, who's been the executive producer for IQ2 Oz, Anne Golden, who's not here tonight, but she's been managing the production for the last 3 years and has stepped down from that role. The staff and management of the City Recital Hall at Angel Place. Volunteers who you see around conducting the ballot and doing other things which make these things possible. I thank our marvellous panel of speakers. Right one other thing, of course there'll be a series next year. What we're thinking to do is to invite you to contribute suggestions for debates that you might like to have staged here in Sydney. I'll give you just a few of the ones that we're thinking of. Things like that abortion should be legalised, because it's not legal in New South Wales and in most states and territories of Australia. We will live to regret the rise of China. So these are the sorts of things. If there's something that you're thinking, yeah, that sounds a bit right, or if you've got other ideas that you think equally or more interesting than that, it would be great to know. And we'll send subscribers a link so that you can express a view. And if you aren't a subscriber, you can sort of track down the website www.iq2.oz to find that. And of course, if you're Twittering, you can go to twitter.com/iq2oz.